topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Churchill said, "Those who fail to learn from history are condemned to repeat it." Kevin Hallinan believes that certainly applies to business. Welcome to Winning Business Radio, here at W4CY Radio. That's W4CY.com. And now, your host, Kevin Hallinan.
Thank you, everybody, for joining in once again today. I am Kevin Hallinan, and welcome back to Winning Business TV and Radio on W4CY.com. We're streaming live on Talk4TV.com. And, of course, we're streaming live on Facebook, and that's at Winning Business Radio. And, of course, we're available in podcast after the live show and many other platforms, including YouTube, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple, pretty much wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, we are there. The mission of Winning Business Radio and TV, as regular viewers and listeners know, is to offer its insights and advice to help people avoid the mistakes of others, right? To learn best practices. Those are the how-tos, the what-tos, the what-not-tos. And I always say to be challenged and hopefully and certainly to be inspired by the successes of others. But, you know, virtually every successful person I've ever had a chance to has had some form of failure in their lives and careers. So listen, while we all have to get our knees skinned once in a while, I'm driven to keep those scrapes from needing major surgery. Let's endeavor to learn from history so we don't repeat it. Today, my guest is Jeremy Bombard, I can say it, founder and principal attorney at Bombard Law. Here's his bio. Jeremy Bombard is a business attorney. He brings extensive experience in managing a wide range of legal matters. He's a recognized advisor with demonstrated success in corporate law, land use litigation, civil litigation, and small business advisement. Jeremy's dedicated to empowering small businesses with legal expertise, ensuring their protection and success in various corporate needs. He acts as their outside general counsel and handles day-to-day legal needs. His legal expertise includes investigation procedures, corporate defense strategies, litigation management, employment law, and risk management. He is skilled in case assessment, discovery, motion practice, mediation, trials, and appeals. Before moving into helping businesses, Jeremy was a litigator, which has allowed him to know the risks that businesses face and the consequences of not having the correct contracts in order. He brings that knowledge to keep the risks down for his clients to attempt to mitigate any future legal issues. Jeremy earned his undergraduate degree in politics and government from the University of Hartford and his law degree from New England School of Law in Boston. When he isn't working, you're likely to find him participating in a Spartan race somewhere in New England. Jeremy lives in Framingham, Mass, along with his wife, Heather. Jeremy, welcome to Winning Business Radio and TV. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Kevin.
You got it. So most people hear that background and say, wow, I did all that. I know all that. But we just want, that's a starting point, right? We want people to get to know you. And so I always like to start with some background. I know you live in Framingham. Tell us where you grew up.
So I grew up in Central Mass, Southbridge. And if you don't know where Southbridge is, you've been close because I'm guessing everybody's been to Old Sturbridge Village.
For sure.
It's 2 minutes away. So I grew up there. Ended up going to high school in Worcester. And then as soon as I graduated, I said, I got to move out of the suburbs. And I moved to Boston. Yep. That was years and years and years ago. But when my wife and I went to look for a house, we realized Boston was just outrageously expensive. So we sort of took a step back, went to Framingham, and now Framingham is overpriced. So go figure.
Cool. I know. Everywhere is, right? All right. So when you were young, perhaps high school, what were your early interests?
As far as career-wise?
Maybe you didn't even know. No, what were you into? Sports? Were you into any pursuits of any kind?
No, I was kind of a lazy high school student. It's ironic. I mean, I played sports. I played some soccer, some baseball, some basketball. But nothing, like even in college, it was more the intramurals, It was, nothing as opposed to now where my athletic pursuits have widely changed. And as far as career, I absolutely knew I was going to be an attorney. In
All
fact,
right. So that was one of my questions. How and when did you know that?
so this happened back in, I'd say, middle school.
Mm-hmm.
I remember taking an aptitude test where that you went through and figured out what you wanted to do. And I said, that's it. I'm going to be an attorney. And I wish I remembered why I wanted to be an attorney so diligently, but it's since middle school, ever since then. And I haven't wavered. I was in pre-law in college, and I went through college, and I said, I'm all done with school. I couldn't do another 3 years of school. So I took time off, and I said, I don't want to be in the law. I'm going to try something different. And I kept going back. Was a paralegal, doing regulatory work. And I said, all right, I guess I have no choice. I'm going to law school. So
I have no choice.
And I was in DC, and I just didn't like DC. So I came back here to Boston. I said, that's it. I'm not going to be an attorney. That lasted a year. Went back to law school, finished my law degree. So
any good stories of middle school, like negotiating trades at the lunch table or anything?
So, because I've always asked my parents this, I said, why? Why was I always want to be a lawyer? And both my parents agree it's because I argued all the time. I'm stubborn. I was the firstborn. It had to be my way or the highway. So I argued every time, everything, no matter what. So I think it just, my parents would say, you're going to make a great lawyer someday. And it's subconsciously stuck in my head.
So what made you choose Hartford, University of Hartford, that is, and to pursue politics and government?
The glamorous version is it gave me the most money.
Hey, that's a common reason, and it's a good reason, frankly.
But it's when you go to law school. In fact, if I would have done it all over again, I would have actually done pre-law, because in retrospect, I realized it's a worthless degree. It means, unless you're going to be a lawyer, it means absolutely nothing. I should have gone English, because that's the bulk of what you do as an attorney is writing. And English would have been much better for a legal career than pre-law or political science or whatever they call it. But
poli-sci or government, you weren't wanting to get into politics or government law per se, right?
So interestingly enough, Kevin, I thought about it, and I said, well, that's not a bad career, being in politics and government. And then I went to DC, and that cured me of anything politics. Really.
You got the injection, you got the inoculation.
It's funny. People say, like, if you go to DC, you're either going to love it, you're going to hate it. And I hated it. It was just, I mean, you think the regular court system now is bogged down in bureaucracy, and well, as you can imagine, DC was even more so. And I just said, I don't want to deal with. I want to deal with real life stuff. Yeah.
Hey, quick sidestep. Don't tell her I said that, but tell us about Heather, your wife.
So my wife, she is an executive assistant for the May Institute down in Randolph.
Yep, I'm familiar with them.
Autism school. She's been there about 2 years now. She loves the job. Some days she hates it, like we all do. But we've been together, married now. This will be our 12th year in December. About 3 or 4 years before that.
Congratulations!
We met
Almost
in Watertown. And like I said, we lived together in Waltham, and said we want to buy a place in Waltham. We love Waltham. We looked at the prices, says, nope, that's ridiculous. So let's move where we can afford. But her and I, we get along very good. She's actually, if you want to even do more of a sidestep about my races, she'll come and crew me. She'll help me out. She's my support crew, essentially.
Wow. By the way, I didn't know that she was affiliated with the May Institute. Tell people a little bit about that. It's a really impressive organization.
Yeah, so they are a nonprofit organization that, and my wife tells me, I don't know how many schools they have, but they're schools that help children with autism.
Right.
I think they're all Eastern and Central Mass. I don't know how far out they go. I forget how many schools they have exactly. But yeah, they basically help the kids with autism, and they provide programs and schooling and all the assistance to families with kids with autism, and just basically provide a wealth of information on how to handle a child with autism.
Yeah, that's such a cool mission. Such an important one. All right. So why'd you choose New England School of Law? You told us, know, how you got into the pursuit of law, where that came from. Why New England School of Law?
So New England School of Law, I went to, again, because it was one of the only 2 law schools in Boston that have a night program. And I spent a year at Columbus University. No, not Columbus University. Columbus School of Law at Catholic University in DC.
DC, yep.
Great law school. I just again, DC. I just wasn't having it, and not an inexpensive school. So I said, I can't afford to go full time. I'm going to work during the day. I got to go at night.
Yep.
So I looked around. It was either Suffolk or New England, and essentially they were one and the same. And I think New England was a little less expensive and had a little bit more better evening classes to train to be a lawyer. And I know that sounds weird because you think, well, I'm going to law school. That's what you are. You're becoming a lawyer. But it's funny. You learn all the theory about law that hardly ever comes into play on a day-to-day basis. I like the fact that there were actual lawyers teaching my classes that would say, look, you're going to graduate and here's what's going to happen. Don't forget about the civil procedure or the rule of perpetuities or any of this other stuff. Here's what's going to happen. Here's how to get work. Here's how to get a job. Here's how to, go out solo. Here's how to do a business plan. And that's honestly, I think that's helped me more than anything I've learned in law school.
Well, that's a big plug for New England School of Law because you don't get that a lot,
No, and to be honest, I don't know if Suffolk has that or not, but I remember looking at the schedule and saying, I want classes where they're more, I don't want professors teaching it. I mean, yes, they teach you and you learn about the law, but I want to learn from the guys that actually do it. Yeah.
So how difficult was it to work full time? I mean, I did that for a couple of years, work full time and go to college.
Well,
how did you find it?
The correct answer is very hard, but the job I had at the time was very easy.
Okay, that's a plus.
I worked for Bank of America. In fact, it was a great learning experience. I worked for Bank of America in their legal department, and my boss and I handled all of the consumer real estate litigation matters for Bank of America for the entire country.
Wow.
So in fact, I was actually learning more during the day as opposed to at night because I would learn, how to do deposition. I wouldn't do the work, but I would manage the outside counsel. So I'd see how they're doing this, how they're doing that, and more the negotiation. Because at the end of the day, it's about especially litigation. It's from getting us from the start to the finish as cheaply as possible. And I learned that a lot managing the outside counsel.
So I was going to ask this a little later, but let me toss it in here, and this will probably take us up to the break. For the viewers and listeners, define the difference between a trial attorney and a litigator.
There is none. In fact, well, yes.
I should have said if there is one too, because I don't.
So a litigator does litigation. And they do everything from start to finish. Now, a trial, there are a small group of attorneys that do specifically trial work because it's so unique nowadays. When I think it's 10% go to trial now, and that might even be a high number. Yeah. So you don't do a lot of trials now. So there's usually a group of attorneys, more likely than not, in a bigger law firm that will just do the trials, whereas a litigator will do everything. The trial attorney just comes in at the trial standpoint. It helps with the trial.
So are litigators trying to avoid trial in a sense?
Yes, because it's not, unless you have a guaranteed slam dunk case, which is never, then you want to avoid trial because you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
You think you're absolutely going to win, and you know what the jury's going to say, and you know what's going to happen, and then they come back with a completely different verdict.
You can't, what's the show, was the show? Bull. You ever see that show?
Yes. But those are the larger scale ones, but ones the small, like if you're $1 million like trial, then yes, you're spending the money, but more often than not, it's you're just trying to get through the trial. Your client is freaking out because you're spending 2 full weeks of preparation time at X amount per hour. And they're just saying, look, get this thing done. And yeah, you never know. You leave it into the hands of the jury. It can be completely different than what you expect.
Oh, we don't have time to dig into that, although it's very interesting to me anyway. But all right, we're going to take our first break. We'll be right back, everybody, with Jeremy Bombard in about 1 minute.
You're listening to Winning Business Radio with Kevin Hallinan on W4CY Radio. That's W4CY.com. Don't go away. More helpful information is coming right up, right here on Winning Business Radio.
Have you ever dreamt of being on the radio? Well, now is your chance. Be a radio show guest on the #1 ranked internet radio station and promote you and your business for free. Yes, you heard it, free. Business advertising right here on W4CY.com. Call 561-506-4031 now to get booked on one of our shows. That's 561-506-4031. Get your free advertising now.
And now back to Winning Business Radio with Kevin Hallinan, presenting exciting topics and expert guests with one goal in mind, to help you succeed in business. Here once again is Kevin Hallinan.
Okay, we're back with Jeremy Bombard of Bombard Law. So I want to take you through a few of your positions. We don't have to spend a lot of time, but I want to just get a sense of your career progression, kind of some of your key takeaways. So we'll start with the various paralegal positions you had prior to law school. What did you learn from those experiences, and how did they help you with your career growth?
Yeah, I recommend this to any attorney who's not, unless you're 100%, you know what you're going to do, become a paralegal, because that's where you learn all the grunt work. That's where all the day-to-day work that the attorneys don't want to do, that's what the paralegals are doing. And that's what I was able to learn, how to do, drafting of documents, how to find information on a case, because a lot of times attorney will just come to a paralegal and say, I need to find out this, go find this out. And if the paralegal doesn't know, well, that's the paralegal's problem. They got to figure this out. They have to go do the research, find out, where to find this information. Legal research is pretty straightforward, especially nowadays with everything online. It's actually almost easy. Back in the day, you actually had to go to the books. I can distinctly remember having to search through actual libraries back in the day. But I like the fact that I learned the day-to-day grunt work that is involved with law.
That's awesome. All right. Then you were at Harvard for a bit as I believe it was real estate regulatory analyst. Tell us about that role first, and then what you learned.
Working for Harvard is so unique in that they have billions of dollars. And when you have billions of dollars, their thought process is a little bit different than someone with $1,000
budget. Yeah.
In fact, so one of my jobs, and it all relates, and I'm glad I had this position, is zoning, and we worked with the different colleges for different expansion. And if you've ever been down,
some of those were contentious too, right? With Alston and
Kevin, I think when you say some, you mean absolutely.
Okay, that to be fair, I didn't know the answer, but I'm not surprised. Yeah,
everybody that lives in Cambridge hates Harvard, and then now everybody that lives in Austin Brighton hates them. So every school wants to expand, and as you know from going, there's a finite number of space, and you have to mix and match and move around. And then anytime you do one little project, every neighbor complains, goes to the town council meetings, yells at Harvard about how they're the worst and blah, blah, blah. And it was interesting to see the animosity towards Harvard.
And yet at the end of the day, they're probably proud that they live near Harvard, when they're talking to, right?
And who spends all the money on the infrastructure and puts a ton of money into the city?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But in fact, speaking of billions of dollars and not having, they wanted to move the Charles River. They wanted to move it south of Austin Brighton so they could connect Austin Brighton with Cambridge.
Oh, my word.
We actually drafted up a plan. There was architectural designs. As you can imagine, it did not go through. But that was the thought. And people were serious. They said, well, we're Harvard. Of course we can move a river. Why wouldn't we? So that's what I did, and that's
crazy.
My learning experience with working for the 100-pound elephant in the room. It was just they got what they wanted for the most part, and they just threw money around. But it was interesting on the zoning side to see how you work with a municipality and a large-scale entity to get things done.
Not easy there either, right? That's a slow-moving process too.
In fact, Kevin, I've learned that if anybody comes to me with a zoning question, I find somebody else to do it because it's so it's not even the difficulty of it. You need to know somebody in the town you're doing it in. It's one of those situations. Unless you want to get something done, you need to know somebody, and it's always better to have somebody on the ground. Otherwise, it's going to take 10 times longer.
Yeah, every city and town's got to be different. The way they approach everything, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Everything you think in the state of Massachusetts that have some uniformity, and every town is completely different.
Well, we were talking the other day. You would think courts have some consistent, and they're all different in terms of what they do. Because I was asking you about Zoom versus in person, and not all the courts are the same.
They're all different. It's a fun job trying to figure out what court you're going to be in and what you have to do for that hearing.
And then the judge as well. All right, first American title examiner, and it looked to me like on the timeline, you started that job, and then law school was while you were working there. You started law school. Am I correct on that?
Yes, exactly. I forgot why I ended up going into title exams. Again, I never wanted to be in real estate, but it sort of followed me and I followed it. And title exams is basically the building block of real estate. Every time you buy or sell a house, you have to find the title. And the title is how the property is transferred from person to person. And the worst part is you don't want there to be a problem 2 people back. So you buy a house and then somebody owned it 10 years ago says, nope, I actually own this parcel of land, and it's ugly. So we did the research.
I can actually tell you a story about that. With 3 siblings, one was kind of left off the sale, and a couple buyers later, that one lone sibling said, wait a minute, we sold it? Yeah.
So that was, again, and I'm dating myself, but we actually had to go to the registry and use the actual books. In fact, one of my jobs, towards the end of my tenure there at First American, this was at the time when the Catholic Church were in a little bit of trouble, and they were looking for some money for the settlement. So First American said, hey, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do all the titles on all the churches. So if they have to sell them, we already have the titles done, so they should use us, which is great, except for me, who had to go to the bowels of the Cambridge Registry, which was one of an older registry anyways, and look at all the old books, the dusty old books in the basement, and try to read the old writing and go back. Because, you have to go back 50 years in a title search, which normally is pretty easy nowadays because there's been plenty of sales. But for churches that have been held on to 200 years, it's interesting to go back. But again, it's helped me in my career because I talk to people about land use litigation right now, and I can say, nope, here's what you need for a title exam. It's this, this, and this, and how do you fix it? No problem. So,
well, I would imagine many businesses, certainly not at all, but many businesses have a real estate component, right? Or want to have one. They want to buy a building that they're in, or right?
Exactly. If they don't, then they want to, and it's great to have that. To have that ability to say, oh no, well, what do you have on the, what's the mortgage situation? What's the lien situation? Because again, that's, to jump ahead, it's if you own $1 million piece of property with $1 million mortgage, then guess what? That's worth $0. But if you have $1 million piece of property that has no liens, you have $1 million.
All right. We talked about Bank of America a little bit. Then you went solo for a year.
Kevin, in fact, no, I actually started at this little law firm called, actually, it's not little, it's a foreclosure defense. And the reason I started there first was because at Bank of America, I got some great contacts. I interviewed. I was going to actually go into commercial real estate because, again, I like the real estate, but the commercial side's a little bit more interesting. And I like the deal side of things, whereas opposed to litigation, we're fighting. And I interviewed with 2 firms, and they said, as soon as you pass the bar, the job's yours. You're a commercial real estate attorney. But unfortunately, this was 2007. I passed the bar. I called up the law firms. They said, yep, we just laid off our whole commercial real estate.
Oh, man, yeah.
So scrambling, I knew a guy at Harmon Law. They do mortgage foreclosure defense litigation for various banks.
That's in Newton.
Yes.
Yeah,
yep,
Newton.
Exactly.
Okay.
So I called him up. I said, look, I had 2 jobs lined up. I have nothing. Can you get me work? And we talked. He's like, well, yeah, you know how to do litigation through Bank of America, and you did some title work. You're hired. Mortgage foreclosure defense work is grueling. It's tough. You think in a litigation you're fighting, but when I'm fighting for all intents and purposes, kick people out of their homes, it's a tough day in court. It's a real tough day in court. In fact, I've had judges look at me and say, the law is completely on your side, Attorney Bombard, but I'm going to rule completely against you because of the homeowner. I'm going to side with them. And if you want to appeal it, go ahead. It's going to take 3 years to appeal. So good luck.
Wow.
So I said,
have a nice day.
Yeah, the judges said, look, you're going to win eventually, but I get to keep them in their house for another 3 years.
Wow.
So it was tough. It was a tough day-to-day battle. And I said, that's it. I don't want to do this. And I had a client at Chicago Title, and I said, I'm going to go solo. If I leave, do you want me to do all your title litigation for you? And they said, absolutely. So I said, great. I did the title work as a title examiner. I knew litigation. I just combined the two, and I did title litigation for about 3 years. Unfortunately, I always do this. I did so good of a job that I cleaned up all their mess, and they said, yeah, our workload has decreased. You've cleaned up all the litigation cases. And that was at the time, it was 2011-ish, and the economy was getting a little bit better. So people were refinancing and getting rid of the old bad mortgages. So they were actually paying them again. So a lot of the work went away. So I said, that's it. It's time for me to move on to my next adventure.
Which seems to be Hauser and Allison.
Hauser and Allison, again, it was some of the same foreclosure, real estate, financial institution related litigation. And the reason I liked that position was they were a national firm, and they wanted to open up a Boston office. And I got in touch with the owner, and he said, look, I want you to open the Boston office for me. He's like, I'm sick and tired of like contracting it out, losing all this money. I'm going to have you people So I was able to start the firm, find the space, grow the firm.
It's a great experience.
It was me when I started, and I think when we left, we had 11 attorneys and 3 paralegals.
Wow.
And it was interesting work, and it was nice to sort of have that autonomy from the California office and then manage the Boston office. And because again, it was completely Boston and California. They're just 2 completely different litigation worlds. And my boss gave me free reign to, manage and get things organized and grow the firm.
Really good experience there. And then I'll probably say this one wrong. Seyfarth or Seyfarth Shaw?
Close. Seyfarth.
Seyfarth. Okay. It was the third choice. Senior counsel. What did you do there, and what were your takeaways?
So the reason I went there was because it's big law. And every attorney aspires to be big law, get to the big leagues, and you get to the big firm. And they hired me because they had a bunch of these consumer financial litigation cases, specifically in Rhode Island. I had experience in Rhode Island. I'm licensed in Rhode Island. And I said, this is great. I've always wanted to do big law. That's what you're aspired to. And I went to big law, and I realized, no, you forget that you're not only doing the legal work, but you have to do a lot of ancillary work. You have to do articles. You have to do the bringing in the clients, and you have to jump through a lot of hoops. And they don't tell you what to do, and they get mad when you don't do what you're supposed to do. And it was an interesting experience working for, like, you literally had everybody to do anything. Like if you needed somebody to staple your paper, you just, send an email, someone come in and staple it. But it was almost, you had to do everything else, not the legal work. So that lasted a year. And it's funny. That's the time when I said, I'm just getting burnt out from litigation. Litigation it's one of the tougher fields, because all you do is you fight with people all day. That's it. You fight with the opposing counsel. You fight with your clients because they don't like the way the litigation is going, because it doesn't go the way they want it to. You fight with the courts. So it just drains on you every day, just fighting. Some people love it. Some attorneys really like it. And I don't mind it, but every day it just got to me. So I was at Seyfarth. I met a friend who worked for this e-discovery company. He said, look, we just lost our general counsel. We're a small firm. They had 10 or so employees. They said, look, we got this big litigation. We got all this mess that we got to clean up. Would you be interested? And I said, I have no idea how to be general counsel. My background's in litigation. And he said, no, it's easy. It's just you read contract, or you know how to read a mortgage, right? It's the same thing. I said, well, it's not the same thing, but let me talk to the CEO. So I talked to him, and he's like, look, the litigation side. He's like, you can read a contract, right? You know how to read legalese and all that stuff. You can figure it out. I said, yeah, I can figure it out. He's like, great, you're hired. Literally the first week I was there, I was in 10 depositions.
Oh man.
Large scale employment wage and hour litigation act case, which again is ironic, Kevin, because I'm a mortgage financial, civil litigation case, not employment litigation. So this was, again, a nice learning curve. And then they had some other smaller, they had offices in Texas and DC. They had some smaller, they had some issues with the city. They had some issues with some other employees. And what did I get myself into?
Job security.
But I loved it because for once, not so much the litigation, but for the contracts with the salespeople, dealing with the vendors, reviewing the leases, I said, this is great. We're all, for the most part, on the same page. We're trying to get to the same point. We just need to fine tune the language. And that's honestly where my love for business law began.
All right. One more question before the break at bottom of the hour. It's 4:31 Eastern. We'll push it just a little bit. General counsel is an inside permanent employee attorney.
That's correct.
Dealing with one client, and that's the company.
Yep. It's the company's attorney on a day-to-day basis.
And how was that experience different, other than those, that obvious focus? How was that different from being in your own firm? So
the in-house general counsel handles, it's usually a larger firm because there's usually issues every day with the company.
Right.
Every day there was somebody coming to me with some issue about employment, about contracts, about legal formation.
And when you say issue, it didn't have to be a dispute. It just had to be, hey, we have this contract because we're about to make a sale, or right.
Something that needed to be done. And I've learned this as general counsel, even if it wasn't legal related, everyone comes to the attorney first because they figure, well, if he doesn't know, then he'll figure it out. Whereas my role right now as an outside general counsel, it's not day to day. My clients don't have that many legal issues. So it's usually on a interim basis, month to month, every few months, once a year. So it's not a day-to-day based relationship.
That makes sense. All right. We're going to take our second break right here. We'll be back in another minute with Jeremy Bombard.
You're listening to Winning Business Radio with Kevin Hallinan on W4CY Radio. That's W4CY.com. Don't go away. More helpful information is coming right up, right here on Winning Business Radio.
The YP.com website is your local search engine. If you're looking for a good restaurant, it can help you find the right one nearby with ratings and reviews. Or if your car breaks down, you can use the YP app to find the closest repair shop. Or maybe you're just looking for something to do on a Friday night. Well, it has great local coupons for all sorts of things in your area. No matter what, when, or where, if you're looking for something, YP Local Search can help you find it. So go to YP.com or download the app to search local, find local, and save local.
And now back to Winning Business Radio with Kevin Hallinan, presenting exciting topics and expert guests with one goal in mind: to help you succeed in business. Here once again is Kevin Hallinan.
Okay, we're back with Jeremy Bombard, founder and principal attorney of Bombard Law, business attorney. Turk and Quijano, just a quick experience there. Then we'll get into Bombard Law since 2018.
Yeah, so that was a interesting endeavor when they hired me specifically to help their clients with their business related and some employment, because I figured I'd done the employment litigation. Soon thereafter, it was apparent to me that that's not what my role was. I ended up doing more litigation. I barely did any business. In fact, when I tried to broach it with the clients, they said, well, no, you're our litigation attorney. We'll deal with that business attorney. So I said, what am I doing here? I'm trying to get away from litigation. So I started looking around for positions in law firms and businesses, and I just didn't find anything I liked that didn't fit my requirements. It wasn't a good fit. The salary wasn't right. So after a year, I said, well, that's it. I'm going to start my own firm, and hopefully it works.
Well, it has, right?
It has.
What was the most challenging part of starting your firm?
The clients. I started day one with absolutely zero clients. And I had no idea how to get clients because I said, I'm going to do business law. That's it. I need to find small business owners. And I said, well, look, I'll start with the small business owners because I guess, my assumption is they don't have the attorneys. They definitely don't have general counsels. So if I can find those clients, I can definitely help them out. Great. I had no idea where to find them. None. So that was interesting to start with. So then I realized that from a business owners, marketing's not going to work. I mean, it works for like a criminal attorney, real estate, personal injury.
Personal injury, right? Yeah.
But business owners want an attorney that somebody else tells them, hey, go to use this business attorney. He did a good job. You should go use him.
Right.
So I said, all right, I'm going to network. I'm going to start networking. I'm going to
make sense. Yeah.
Figure it out, and hopefully that works. And I started with BNI. And it's funny because I remember after the first meeting, they said, look, you just realize like, it's not like you don't get clients right away. It takes time. It can take 6 months to a year. You got to build up that relationship. And I said, I'm absolutely understanding of that. That's completely fine. And literally the next meeting, I had 4 people come up and say, I need your help. So
they didn't get the memo. They weren't supposed to hire you until the first year. Yeah.
they said, well, you seem like a good guy. So hopefully you're not going to, destroy my business. So hopefully you can help me. And that's when I realized it's like that small business owner. Yes, they are hesitant, but they need the help.
Sure.
I mean, they don't need the help, but it doesn't hurt for them to have that assistance because I can help them circumvent any problems down the road. And again, like I said before, they always come to me with their weird questions that I would never know anything about, but at least I can sort of break it down. I'm like, all right, well, this is actually, nope, that's an accounting question. Who's your accountant? You don't have an accountant? Let's find you an accountant. That's a tax question. We'll get that fixed.
Yeah. So now talk about the work that you do for your clients, and we'll get into formations, right? There are various forms, ways of I'll use the word incorporating. Doesn't mean corporation, as you know, but somebody wants to start a business. What do they have to do legally?
Yeah. So that's they come to me first and say, I'm going to start a business. Should I start an entity? And my response is always, absolutely. You start an entity, it's going to help you legally. It's going to help you tax-wise. And for little money, why wouldn't you do it? Because if you're a sole proprietor and you get sued, guess whose house is getting attached?
Right.
Your own house.
Right.
And then it's a question of there's only 2. Well, you can do partnerships, but in 6.5 years, I've never done a partnership. It's either an LLC or a corporation. And it's what's going to work best for you. How's it going to be formed? Are you going to bring on investors or no? Is it just going to be you and 2 people or you yourself? And here's how, those are the discussions I have is what are you going to be doing? How many people are going to be involved? Are you going to be bringing on people? Yes, no. Are you going to, if it's a startup?
And what's the nature of the work? How risky is that work?
Exactly.
I would imagine there's a factor there, right?
Absolutely. And I think there's only one time where I told somebody they don't have to do it because it was a one-off. They were going to do one job for somebody and that was it. And I said, well, they're actually taking all the risk. You don't have any risk. You're doing the work. They have to pay you. So they're never going to sue. I said, it's not worth creating an LLC for this project. I said, but for the most part, if there's any liability, absolutely. And I said, always talk to your accountant because there are sometimes different forms are better for different businesses. So from a legal standpoint, the legal liability for a corporation is identical to an LLC. The costs are pretty much equal. There's more paperwork in a corporation as opposed to an LLC. That's usually the toughest part.
So S Corp versus C Corp, that's more of an accounting function for taxes.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. And then what many companies, big and small, have to do is create, review, and negotiate contracts. Talk about that.
That's the bulk of my work. And it's in about 2 months, I'm going to get everybody coming to me with their commercial leases, their renewals, or if they get a new space. I said, look, you should let me look at it because I can change a little. It can't change a lot, unfortunately, from a commercial, but again, Kevin, it never hurts to ask. So I will be a little aggressive in the lease. Sometimes the landlord says, yes, no problem. I'm okay with those changes. And sometimes they say, no, we got to tweak this. You're going to bring on a client, an employee. You don't need an employment agreement, but you want a non-solicitation. You don't want them to learn all your secrets and all your clients' quit, steal all your clients, and go start a business across the street, something to that effect.
Or pull some employees with them when they leave.
Or employees, exactly. That's
Yep.
Or you're gonna, whatever you're doing with a client, like as I tell my clients, the biggest thing you want to make sure is you want to get down what work you're doing, who's responsible for what, and the money. Money's always the big thing. Like when do you get paid? What happens if you don't get paid? Is there different levels of payment? And then I'll put in all the boilerplate to protect you. That's it. Contractors, they'll deal with subcontractors. I say, look, do you have an agreement with them? They say, no. I said, well, what happens if your subcontractor plows into the house? They said, well, I guess I got to pay for it. I said, well, that doesn't seem fair, does it? Shouldn't it be the subcontractor? I mean, the subcontractor made the mistake. He's like, well, I can always sue the subcontractor. And I said, yeah, good luck with that. I mean, if you don't have a contract, then how do you know whose responsibility is what? It's their word against your word. No, I have it in a bunch of text messages. I can tell you, Kevin, there's nothing more a judge hates to look at than these random text messages. I said, here's what I tell all my clients. If you spend a little bit of money on me, I can put something into a contract, and I'm not like a lot of attorneys. I don't get paid by the word. I'm not going to put a 40-page contract together when 4 pages does it.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that it's clear, concise. I despise legalese. I try to make it as simple and as understandable as possible, but I want all the parties to realize who's doing what the ramifications are if you don't do it. And maybe we'll go to litigation if you don't do it right, but hopefully that doesn't happen.
Well, it's Murphy's Law, right?
Well, it's Kevin. That's exactly. I think one of the first blog posts I ever did was, pay me now or pay me later. Like you can pay me now to do a contract, or you can pay me 10 times, 20 times more to do the litigation. I'm more than happy to take your money for litigation, but I'm also happy to do a nice little contract, make everyone happy.
All right. What about buying, selling a business?
So it all depends.
Or taking on a partner for that matter.
So taking on a partner is a big deal. And people do it and don't think twice about it. Like, no, I brought on somebody, they're going to own half my business. And I have to say, what's the agreement? It's
my buddy. I've known him since high school.
Yeah. Those, again,
they're all passed away at this point, but my father had a partner in his business that he knew from high school who ended up stealing money from him.
Or family members. I've litigated cases against brothers.
Yeah. That's rough.
It's really rough. And they say, I can't imagine this ever happening. And it's usually those are the ones that come to me after the fact. They say, I said, oh, and I like those stories because when I tell my new clients, they're like, no, again, it's my best friend. It's my brother. It's my uncle.
I mean, our families were friends. I knew his kids. We used to go to their houses, one on the Cape and one in New Hampshire. And yeah, it was a mess.
I say that's
after
great.
The fact.
I say that's great. I just finished up a litigation against two brothers who were in business together. So I can tell you how much that costs, or I can tell you how much a contract costs. So yes, if you have more than one owner, you absolutely need an agreement. Not only to again, it's who's doing what, where the money goes, but also what happens if somebody were to pass away.
Yeah.
You don't think about this as a business owner, and I get morbid with my clients. I'm like, what happened if you die tomorrow? And they say, that's, I'm not that old. I said, it's not about being old. It's about getting, I think we talked about this. Like you get hit by a bus.
Yeah.
Do what happens to your interest in the company? What happens to your partner's interest? Is there insurance to pay for that? And it's funny. They come to me and say, I never thought about that. I said, 99% of the time it'll never happen, but you don't want to be that 1%.
I mean, we know, you probably know the story, but I won't mention his name. We know in common an attorney whose partner passed away, and all of a sudden he found himself in business with his widow.
Right.
Who had no idea and was expecting a lot more than there ever was. So it became very messy.
It's almost like I would have put a book of all these bad experiences together and hand them out to my clients and say, yes, it probably won't happen, but here's all these 20 cases.
Just do those few things, right? Yeah.
But yeah, so buying and selling a business, again, some people think, no, it's no big deal. We're friends. I'm selling it to my friend, or I'm selling it to my kid. It's going to be great. No problem. I said, look, I'm sure it isn't, but if you got to make sure the money, because it's always, no. I said you were going to pay me this and this much and this percentage. And like, no, that's not the agreement. If it's not in writing, then it's then it's up to the jury to decide. So do you want to go to a jury? Do you want to put it in writing? When these aren't complex. I mean, they're not, I have one right now where, yes, the firm on the other side is getting paid by the word and is trying to put as many words into the agreement as possible. And my client says, I don't understand half of this. And I said, you don't have to. It's just legalese stuff. But here's the main point. I go through and I look at the main points. Like, again, where's the money going? When are you getting the money? What is your responsibilities? What, from a buyer and seller, they're different standpoints. From a seller, you want to make sure once you sell that company, that's it. You don't have any more responsibility. And if something happens afterwards, you want indemnification. You want to make sure that if that company gets sued 6 months from now, you're not getting dragged into it. And from the buyer, you don't want to get stuck with any of the issues from the prior owner. You want to make sure that you come with a clean slate. You get the assets you're supposed to get. You get them free and clear. There's nothing worse than you trying to do a closing and, we can't transfer this truck because there's a loan on it. I said, what? We discussed this. You said there was no loan. Oh, yeah, there is.
Oh, that truck.
That's
right. So this is the collection of things you refer to as risk assessment, risk management, really, right? Doing the work up front. So if the worst happens, we're prepared.
My litigation background has helped me because I've seen how litigation works. I've seen the trials and tribulations and it's ugly. No one wants to do litigation. So I tell my clients, if we do things correctly up front, you avoid the litigation. You save money on me. You're not spending tens of thousands of dollars on me. And then you sleep better at night. You don't have to worry about it because, Kevin, I think I told you this the other day. I got a trial date of 2026 in one of my litigation cases.
I know. Yeah, I remember I was like, what? How does that work? Yeah.
He's like, I think I'm free that day. He's like, how do I know what I'm doing 2 years from now? I said, put it in your calendar now, then you won't have anything to do. So it's yes, the risk management, risk assessment. I look at things, I see a company with employees, a good amount of employees. I tell them, look, you need to get an HR outsourced person because you need employees will be your pain point. You mess up once, you're going to pay for it. Get a good handbook. If you have to reprimand somebody or hire and fire them, then you got to do everything by the book. Make sure you get
Shout out to Patty Lyons. She will be a guest on August 26th.
That's who I refer to because she does the right thing and make sure that pain point is resolved. And
all right, I have 3 questions left for you.
Yeah.
You can be general or specific. In your professional life, what are you most proud of?
Honestly, being a solo practitioner for 6.5 years and running a successful business. And not only that, more so is just making my clients' businesses run more smoothly.
As you said, they can sleep at night.
Right.
That's a real thing. All right. Second, how did you get into Spartan races?
12 years ago, I got an email from Mount Snow. I used to ski up there, and there was this thing called Tough Mudder, which is similar to Spartan. And they said, we're doing this thing. I told my wife, I said, this sounds amazing. It sounds like fun. Let's go up there and play in the mud and crawl and stuff. And it was a blast. We were running up and down the mountain, jumping through stuff. It was a blast. But unfortunately, it was cold, and my wife doesn't like cold water. So she says, yep, that's it. I'm never doing this again. And 12 years later, I'm still doing them.
And she's your crew, as you said.
She's my crew. She sits and watches me, and I don't know how she doesn't just laugh at me, just covered in mud or but she's supportive and she's there. She's like, let's go. And I'm okay.
That's awesome. All right, last one. Who in the listening and viewing audiences should reach out to you and why?
It's any business owner with about 50 employees or less. It doesn't matter what field you're in. It doesn't matter what kind of work you do. If you don't have a part-time general counsel, any legal counsel that you reach out on a regular basis, you should have me. I say you should have a bookkeeper, an accountant, an attorney. We're the people that are going to keep you out of trouble. And again, the great thing about me is you don't need me every day. You need me whenever you need me. And some clients I talk to once a year. And I'm happy for those clients because that means their issues are really tiny, and they come. It's those clients that I deal with on a monthly basis that I have to say, all right, maybe we need to do some different things. But yeah, I'm there as your resources whenever you need me, as much as you need me.
And lastly, what's the best way for people to connect with you?
Either email or phone. Either one, either call or email. I'll get back to you within a day or so.
Okay, and we put the information along there. What's the website?
Bombard.
There it is, right there. There's the phone.
If you punch in Bombard Law to any search engine, I'll pop right up. It's pretty unique.
Beautiful. Jay Bombard at Bombard Law, bombardlaw.com. Jeremy, this is great. Thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time.
Anytime, Kevin. I loved it. This was great. Thank you so much.
You're more than welcome. And thanks, everybody, for watching and listening. This is a show about business and business challenges. If you've got concerns about the growth of your company, you can reach out to me on Facebook or LinkedIn at Winning Business Radio. Drop me a note. One of my many email addresses would be kevin@winningbusinessradio.com. Our company, Winning Incorporated, lost you there. We specialize in developing sales teams into high achievers and sales leaders into true coaches and mentors. Hey, we're not right for everybody, but maybe we should chat. Stay with us next week, August 12th at 4 p.m. Eastern. My guest will be Scott McGregor. He is the founder of Something New LLC, as well as the Outlier Project. We'll see you next week.
You've been listening to Winning Business Radio with your host, Kevin Hallinan. If you missed any part of this episode, the podcast is available on Talk4 Podcasting and iHeartRadio. For more information and questions, go to winningbusinessradio.com or check us out on social media. Tune in again next week and every Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time to listen live to Winning Business Radio on W4CY Radio, W4CY.com. Until then, let's succeed where others have failed and win in business with Kevin Hallinan and Winning Business Radio.